afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Mountaineer Locker Room Then and Now. I am Greg Crist. That is Frank Fear. And that is Mickey Plumley down below. All three of us on here to host the show tonight. We got another great show. Before we get too far into it, we want to ask that everybody like and subscribe on our YouTube channel. That helps us to keep doing what we're doing here. I don't know if we're doing anything good, but we sure are trying. And we've had some great shows. And I think we're going to have another great show tonight. We also want to mention our good friends and executive producers of this thing, Mike Dunlap and Mark Parsons, for all the help that they have given us over the past few months, getting guests, hooking us up with people. We appreciate those guys as well for helping us out. And Frank, Mickey, I know you guys watched this guy play. And this was in my heyday when I was the huge fan. And I remember him well and saw that picture on there just now with him running that touchdown against Penn State. Man, give me chill bumps when I saw that. So anyway, welcome to the show, guys. I think we got another good one tonight. We have Pat Randolph with us. And I'm sure all Mountaineer fans who watched any Mountaineer games back in that era or before remembers Pat Randolph, great running back for WVU for several years.
Yeah. You know, there's a story behind that photo. I thought for sure that Dale Sparks shot that photo. So I reached out to Dale. People who know Dale know that he's been shooting and still is. Just great photos of Mountaineer games and heroes, etc. And but he said, you know, that's a little bit too wide angle for me. That wasn't me. But that, and I appreciate it because I wanted to give him credit. But that is, I'll put it up here again. That is iconic. Oh my God, that is one of my. This shot right here. The beautiful thing about this, and I know that Pat can see us, that is a running back stance. But look at that, 4 Penn State linemen.
Yeah, I was gonna say it looks. He's always like he's in the end zone. He's pounding the ground back there. That's the first thing I noticed with that picture.
Yeah, that's.
And I can remember. I remember that moment. I was in the stadium and was sitting up above that, and he scored it right underneath me where I was at. Never forget it. It was so exciting. But that Penn State lineman in the background was great. That's what makes that picture iconic.
Yeah.
Plus we know what the result was.
Mickey, were you at that game or did you not make that or did you?
No, I had a business commitment over that weekend. Actually, I was out of the country that weekend, but I was able to watch it from London, England.
Wow. Fantastic. Yeah, it was a great game. We've got film of it, and so we're going to be watching that also. And I mentioned to Pat, we've got video of his 96-yard run, still the longest run in Mountaineer history against Northern Illinois in '86. So let's bring this guy in here, Mr.
Well, Frank, before we do that,
before
we do that, let's mention about the shows we got coming up.
Oh yeah, okay.
Let's make sure we mention that before we lose everybody with Pat. When Pat comes on, he's the show. So we want to get this in before he comes on. Frank and I will be hosting a post-game show after each Mountaineer game. So you're welcome to jump on with us. Come on, visit, say hi, send us questions, whatever you want to do.
There it is,
we'll
right
start
there.
that this week. Yep, there's the ad for it. This week we're going to have, we hope to have, we're not sure yet. There seems to be a hiccup in our communications, but we think Owen Schmidt is going to be joining us. That's the plan as of now. He's said he could do it, but we're still waiting to get final confirmation from Owen whether he can join us or not. But we're going to do those after each game. If we can't get Owen, we'll have somebody, and we'll do that post game show here on out. And Frank, do you want to tell them about Mark's show as well, so we can get that out there also?
Yeah, sure. Thanks for reminding me. And also with this post game show, it's going to be a work in progress, but it's not going to be a lot of talking from us. This really is designed to be a drop-in show, not only to make comments as we do on this show, but also join us live in the studio. So we'll drop the link so people can come in. We also want to bring to your attention that there's a new program, and it's on now by the executive producer of the Voice of, actually the founder as well, Mark Rogers of the Voice of College Football. We're a channel on the Voice of College Football. That's already started. It's called The College Football Show, and it's Monday through Friday at 10 a.m. Eastern, every single Monday through Friday. So we encourage you to join that as well. Mark has done a great job after a wonderful career at ESPN to create this network, and he's the reason we're here, along with Joey Foster, the executive producer of this network.
Yep.
Okay, did I forget anything else, Greg?
I think that's it. I think that's it.
Okay, Mr. Pat Randolph joining us.
Hi, everybody. How you doing?
Hello, Pat. Hello, Pat. Welcome you to the
things?
show.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem. We're glad to have you here. I know when we were interviewing Kevin White, you popped up with a comment or two, and that's how we kind of got connected. But like I told Frank there earlier, people that know anything about Mountaineer football and have watched over the years remember Pat Randolph. What a running back, and so exciting for somebody like me to get to talk to you. I was at that game when you scored a touchdown against Penn State, and that was right in my college heyday time too. So I guess we're close to the same age, but man, what exciting times. We're so happy that you ended up at WVU. And I think that's how we kind of like to get started. We like to hear from our guests about your high school experience, what occurred in your high school days, and then why you ended up choosing WVU over a lot of other people, I'm sure. And then your most memorable games and coaches and teammates that you had while at WVU. I know it's a lot of questions rolled into one. If you forget, I'll go back and grab it. So I'm going to give you the stage and let you start talking.
Yeah, you covered a lot there. Boy, that might take the whole hour.
That's all right. That's all right.
So, again, thanks for having me on. It's really been an exciting week. You know, the whole week. I mean, I can't wait till Saturday and all that. But going to Morgantown, and if I had to do all over again, I'd go back. I really enjoyed it. I came out of high school, highly recruited. My parents, if it was up to them, they'd have sent me to Notre Dame, which may have not been such a bad place, but the coach at that time was Jerry Faust. And I can remember Coach Faust. He came into my home, and long story short, he dropped his pie and spilled his coffee on Mom's floor. I politely excused myself and went to my room because that wasn't going to work. So, but I visited Morgantown, and from the time I got out of the car, it was amazing to me. Coach Nealon was amazing. He was building something special there. He was very focused, very energized. He could get through. He could get through to young people. He got through to me. So, I visited some other places, but nothing caught my heart like Morgantown. So, if I had to do all over again, I'd do it again.
Awesome. Awesome. Talk about your high school days just a little bit.
So high school, I went to a fairly large high school just outside of Philadelphia, just south of the airport, Ridley High School, and I played for a tremendous coach there. He just passed away about a year and a half ago, Coach McNick, but he was one of the winningest coaches in Pennsylvania high school history. I lost 2 games in high school. That was about it. And we had some good teams. We had some really good teams. I carried the ball a lot in high school. I was tired. I didn't play defense because I was tired. So, but yeah, my high school career was fantastic. It was fantastic. Played for a great guy, and we had great coaches, and that was, that gave me the start, in my career period.
Yeah, and that's how you, as we were talking earlier this week, Pat, that's how you met Nick Saban, right? Now, was he at LSU at the time, or was he at Bama?
He was not, well, at that time he was in Morgantown, and he had come to a game, or I had bumped into him at another game. Anyway, so we had talked for a few minutes, and he said, I'll be seeing you down the road. And then he left. Obviously he left, but then Coach Bill Kurlavich ended up recruiting me. Wow. But I kept in touch with Coach Saban. I've talked to him a couple times, and he's you know, if I talked to him today, I would probably want to put a helmet on and go play. Yeah, he's just
He has that knack.
really
He sure does.
great motivator.
Yeah. Yeah, and you listen to him talk on ESPN now, so just on the college game day and stuff, and
Yeah.
you can tell he's so.
Oh,
I mean, what a football mind, and listen to him
Intense.
talk, it gets you. Yeah, it just gets you excited when you hear him talk. You played in some huge games at WVU, and again, some of those games that we remember so well, and we'll never forget. What was your, I don't know, most favorite game to play, or what do you remember most about your best game, or anything like that? I'd have to think that the Penn State game was definitely one of the most memorable games you ever played.
Yeah, that one was probably the most memorable without a doubt. You know, set that one aside because that, you know, that's just special. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I go back. I'd love to play Pitt. I'd love to play at Pitt, actually. And, you know, we had some success there with them, but those were great games. The Boston College games, especially when Flutie was there, in both up there and at our place was, you know, I remember those games. And Maryland, you know, those games were special too. You know, we played some really hard fought Maryland teams. Those were hard games. Virginia Tech comes to mind. You know, Bruce Smith was there. He was a terror. And then, you know, we never beat Miami when I was there, but boy, just being on the same field with some of those guys that, you know, a couple of them are in the NFL Hall of Fame. So,
Yeah.
you know, those are memorable games.
Yeah, those were Miami's heydays, man. They were good, so good back then. You mentioned Coach Kralavich. What some of the other coaches you had? Talk a little bit about the coaching staff that Coach Nealon had while you were there, and what kind of an impact that had on you.
Well, I think the first thing, well, Coach Nealon, of course, he was very focused, very intense, and he had a plan. You know, everybody's in between the lines, going the same direction. Okay, you don't step outside the lines and you don't go backwards. But you know, my position coach when I got there was Paul Crisula, who I just had a lot of respect for. He was a good football coach. He has a good football mind. He could talk to you. He got on you. He could talk to you. I could talk to him about anything, but he helped develop me a lot. You know, he worked with me. We did extra stuff. We watched extra film together, did a lot of things. So he was a tremendous influence on me. Coach Kralav is you know, he recruited me, just a no nonsense guy. I love Coach. He's just, he is what he is. You know, he's very direct. You know, he would get after you, but everybody loves Kralav. I don't know any player that has had anything ever bad to say about Coach Kralav. He was just a good person. I mean, his entire family was good to me. So
we've heard a lot of good stories about him.
Good person. Yeah. And, but there was other, you know, Coach Russ Jakes. He was a quarterback coach. He called the plays for a while. Mike Jacobs, you know, may he rest in peace. He was good. I loved all those guys. They were fun to talk to, fun to be around, and very organized, very, very organized, which I kind of pride myself on, you know, being organized, but everything had a plan, everything had a place, or didn't belong, you know. So you stick to the plan and you do everything, you know, between the lines, you know, to complete the plan. So I learned a lot from those guys. Yeah.
So
I gotta, before we go any further, I'm gonna skip the order just a little bit here in the questions, but I gotta ask you about the play from that picture. You ran that sweep around the right side. I remember you sticking your hand out and pushing the blocker forward. I think that was Scott Barrows. We learned before you got in the end zone, and like I said, I was sitting right up above you, looking down at it. And Frank has a video of it, and here we go.
Yeah,
a little shove and get you a block. He knocked down about 3 people.
Well, the whole thing is amazing, and I don't talk about this play a whole lot. You know, people bring it up, and I'll talk about it, but I don't ever talk about this play without mentioning Scotty Burrows, who was pulling left guard and just a big man with some athleticism. It was just incredible, and he wasn't going to be denied either.
Yeah,
he got around that corner, and I think he got stunned because he kind of maybe slowed down a step or two because there wasn't anybody there at first. So, but I gave him a little shove, but if it wasn't for him, that play doesn't work. And actually, the right side of the line as well. The right side of the line as well did a great job. But I never talk about that play without mentioning Scotty. My mom never talks about that play without mentioning Scotty.
We all remember.
And here's the 96-yarder. And what's interesting, the cameraman has trouble keeping up with you.
Oh wow, yeah.
Nobody keeping up with you.
About the other 40 there, I started getting a little winded. I was hoping I wouldn't get caught, but that's I don't know what happened there. I was shocked. I mean, I couldn't see anything, but the building down there, I couldn't see anything.
Yeah, but Mickey, that's line play again. Yeah. If you dissect those plays, and Pat will talk later when we do the keys for the game, he'll talk about the importance of line play. But you could see that. I've watched both of those touchdown runs. Boy, I'll tell you, the WVU linemen. And the interesting thing is, I want to get your thoughts on this, Mickey. When you look at the teams you had back in the '60s, the teams that Bobby had early '70s, and the teams that Pat was on, and the teams that of the '80s under Don Nehlen, this year's team seems to be cut of the same fabric.
Oh, I agree 100%. It, a lot of dedication to getting the job done. There seems to be, finally, trust the climb has come to fruition with the 9-4 season last year. And, even though we lost Zach Frazier and a couple of others off the offensive line, we got some really good replacements are coming in to fill in for them this year, and it's going to be real key to. We're going to talk about this later, but I did want to ask Pat if he could name off any of the offensive linemen that he played with. You remember some of those guys, and did any of those go on to play in the pros, as far as you know, Pat?
Yeah, well, Brian Joswiak definitely played. I think Brian was his first round draft pick with Kansas City, I believe.
Oh, that's right.
Yep.
That's right.
It was number 8 pick.
I did his podcast earlier this afternoon. So, and I see Brian, I talked to Brian quite a bit, and I've seen Scotty Burrows over the last few years. Bill Legg was a center, is a very good friend of mine. Bill was actually in my wedding. So he was a good friend, and Mike Jolliffe, and there's all those guys. That's that 84 team, that offensive line on that 84 team was the best offensive line that I ever ran behind, for sure.
Yep. They were good. They were good.
Really good. So, and I appreciate those guys. And there was, we were talking earlier today, that game that week, we came off the Boston College game.
Oh boy.
And that was that don't get me wrong, that was a big win, but that was more or less a scrimmage for us. The defense gets a lot of credit for that. Boston, for sure. And they get credit. Larry Holly has that interception at the end of the game, Penn State game, to seal that one first. So the defense gets a lot of credit for both those games. But I can remember just that Penn State week and the offensive line. They were just so calm, so cool. And they said, don't worry, we got this. We'll take care of it. And they did. They did. There was so much confidence around that game. The worst part about that week was it was a Saturday night game, and waiting around all day Saturday was awful. We were just ready to play. We were literally ready to play. We could have played that game at 10 a.m. We really could.
Mm-hmm.
That's great. That's great. I know the atmosphere at the stadium that night was unlike. I don't know if I've heard anything like it. It was amazing. That
feeling. There was no way. I mean, everybody in that locker room knew we were going to win that game.
Yeah.
It was just such confidence and such poise, and everybody was ready to go. There was no doubt, and we were the better team.
No question.
Penn State's a physical football team. They always have been, always will be. But we out physicaled them. We we outplayed them. We were faster than they were.
Yeah.
Yeah, our defense just ran circles around them. So
Yeah.
And that's one of the things I always think about that game in particular is that we were so much better. And, the score ended up fairly close. It was a close game, and it shouldn't have been because we pretty much dominated the game.
Yeah.
And but the score still stayed close for various reasons. But, I always felt like we were a lot better than they were that year.
Yeah. And you think about parallels again, as you were talking there, it reminded me, in '84, you obviously played Boston College, Penn State back-to-back, won both games. The Flutie game was huge. And, of course, the Penn State game, first win in decades. But then in 1988, same sequence. Boston College and Penn State come to Morgantown back-to-back. And, again, WVU beats both teams. So I'm a great believer in this. When you see these patterns, see evidence of success, reroute themselves, so to speak. But, Greg, you and I were talking, let me put this up here in terms of Pat's background. A lot of people don't know. Pat went on to have a really good career as an assistant coach, as well as the records at West Virginia. As I mentioned, that run against Northern Illinois is still the longest run in WVU history from scrimmage. And you came out of the chute fast as a freshman against Pitt with 11 carries, 6-yard average, 3 pass receptions. But talk a bit about getting that degree in sports management, and then what led you to a football coaching career. And you can see on the graphic there the schools you coached at.
Yeah, that was I played my freshman year, played my sophomore year, and I got nicked up a couple times, and so I missed a couple games in between there. But I can remember, going into my junior year, the last 5 minutes of practice on the last day of summer camp there, I had somebody pushed somebody fell over the pile. I got a helmet in my thigh, so I had a calcium deposit in my thigh that was about the size of an orange. That was very, very painful. So I didn't play that season. I actually redshirted after my sophomore season. So that was kind of disappointing. So during that time, I was around the team. I was at every meeting and every practice, and getting treatment and all that. But I kind of figured out a couple things. One is I was really close to graduating, and I didn't even realize it at the time. So, well, okay, so I'm close to graduating. That's a good thing. And then, just not being able to play, but sitting in the meetings and being around my teammates, the running backs, and, they're asking me questions and I'm helping them out and, pointing things out to them. And one day I was walking in the building and Coach Nealon called me in and he said, "Hey, how would you like to coach?" And I'm like, I still got 2 years to play. He said, "So yeah, you're going to play, but after that, you need to think about, coming on board and helping us coach." So that's how the wheels got started turning, and that one thing led to another, and there I went. But it's been fun. I was telling the guys earlier today that, I'll be sitting in the stands this weekend for only about the 5th time since I've stopped playing. I haven't been able to get back to games. So this will be the 5th time that I'll be able to sit in the stands and watch a game. I don't know how I'm going to do, but I'm going to attempt to do that. So yeah, I'm excited to get back. I haven't been able to get back to very many games because, I was working myself, but I'm excited about it, but that's how I got started.
Before we Mickey, I want to say to you, if you think about, he was talking about the linemen there just a minute ago. You think about that '88 team that went undefeated. They had I think 5 fifth-year seniors across the front line, if I remember correctly. Really, really good. Pat, your coaching career, and I know you went into coaching. You coached at several different places, but talk a little bit about your coaching career and how that went, and your philosophies and some of the players you might have coached that we've heard of and that sort of thing.
Well, I started out at Ball State out in Muncie, Indiana, there coaching the receivers. so I was there for a season, and then I went out to Utah State in Logan, Utah, and I was there for a couple years. But I coached defense, which was the smartest thing. Was the best thing that ever happened to me, because I learned more about offense coaching defense than anything else. So in hindsight, I wish I kind of stayed on defense, throughout my career, but I did not. So I had an opportunity to come back home, and I worked for, Coach Signetti up at IUP, and just that was a tremendous experience. And working with him, I learned a ton of football. What a brilliant football mind Coach had. He was fantastic. Got to play for a couple national championships while we were at IUP, so that was a lot of fun. So the rest of the years have been spent some smaller schools at Widener, and back home, and I was at Ursinus for quite a while. I was at Cheney University for a season or two. My last stint a couple of years ago, I was at Delaware State, and that didn't work out too well for us. But it's I've met some great people. I've met some wonderful players that still keep in touch. They send me pictures of their kids. They send me pictures of their weddings. I get invited to weddings, and for a long time, I used to say there's no way I could impact somebody's life like that. But I hear that every now and then, and so I'm very fortunate and blessed to have seen the world through sports.
Yeah.
Been a lot of places, done a lot of things. So yeah, it's been a fun ride. I'm ready to try something else, but it's been a fun ride.
I was going to ask you, are you officially retired from the coaching?
Well, I wouldn't say officially retired.
Okay.
I guess if Neil Brown called me, I'd go.
There you go. I wouldn't be surprised.
But yeah, I didn't really look too hard this past season, and nobody came knocking. So I've kind of sat back and enjoyed a little bit, and got traveled around. I have a son who has a little boy now down in Charlotte, so I want to go down and see him. And I have a daughter out in Montana, so I want to get out and see her. So yeah, I'm not officially retired, but yeah.
So never say never.
Never say never.
Remember, never say never. We'll be reading about you before.
Of course, if Coach Saban goes back, I'm going to call him too.
There you go. There you go. I'm sure you still follow the Mountaineers. I'm sure you still watch, and you know what's going on up here. We always like, and our audience likes to hear your thoughts on, the current WVU team and what you think about what's going on with Neil Brown and the situation up in WVU. What's your thoughts about, the current plan up there? What's going on?
Oh, I think his plan is phenomenal. He came into a situation where, he had to, for the sake of the program, dismiss some very, very good football players.
Yep.
But he had to do it for the sake of the program, because you only get a chance to make a first impression one time, and
Right.
he had a job in a major conference, and he had to do it his way, which I think is turning out to be the right way. But anyway, his plan is on target. He's got some guys. He's done a nice job in the portal. He's got some speed. He's developed some speed. The quarterback, he's due for a phenomenal year, and we'll talk a little bit about that and what he needs to do to help the team be successful. But I think Coach Brown really has focused very quietly on the defensive side of the ball, because I think they're going to be pretty good on defense. I mean, they're flying around, they're hitting people, and they're creating turnovers, which they hadn't been doing, but they're starting to take the ball away, and give the offense a short field. So I think his plan is working. Some of my teammates say, well, he doesn't recruit the Philly area or Jersey area or whatever, but again, he's doing some things his way. He's doing some things his way, and I don't have a problem with him. I think he's done a nice job.
That's great to hear, because we feel We feel the same way. We
Yeah.
think he's doing a good job, and we
Yeah.
we hope that it takes time, and
It does. It does.
It may take longer than 4 or 5 years. That's just the way it is today. And if you can give them that time, you get that longevity and the consistency. Then I think that's when it all begins to work out. Now we're going to talk about the keys to the upcoming game, which is around the corner. And I'm going to quit taking all the time, let Mickey and Frank ask some questions. But I want to go back to that play one more time. This sweep. I want to hear from your perspective when the ball was snapped, and I want you to describe what it was like from that point on.
Well, it's the play was it's a handback sweep, and it's a play that it's one of our staple plays actually that we ran my whole time there. So we would run that thing 100 times a day without a doubt. So here, looking at it, we knew that we were going to get a 9 technique on that tight end side. And we knew that block was going to get sealed, that we would get the edge, and that's what we did, up and out. So that was my first key, to look at that, and I'm like, yeah, we're going to get to the outside, and we did. So that's a play, and if that guy's outside, we knew that guy was going to get kicked out. We'd turn it up and then try to get outside, but we knew we were going to get the edge.
Awesome. I always like watching that video, that clip that Frank showed, watching you can see those white jerseys going down to the ground on all those great blocks. It was pretty exciting. What an exciting!
We were more physical than they were. That team, we were more physical than they were. And Penn State is known for their physicality, for sure.
Right.
Yeah.
Frank, I'll let you and Mickey jump in there a little bit. I'm taking up all the time and asking all the questions. Mickey, go ahead there if you got something.
Well, I just wanted to ask, excuse me, on that particular play, you have a guard pulling from the backside that came and he screened off the linebacker.
Yep.
And then the right tackle was responsible for taking the defensive end or the cornerback to the outside. And that's what created the hole for you. If I saw that, is that pretty much how that play plays out?
Yep.
We ran something similar. Yeah, we ran something similar to that play. I played 66 through 69, so it's been a while. I'll tell you a quick story here, though, about that particular play. I think that play has been in WVU's playbook for more than a half a century, actually.
Yeah.
But we ran the play a few times, and I'll never forget this, and you'll be able to identify with this, Pat. People who, aren't playing on the team or involved don't realize the hours that go into preparation for the game and the critiquing that happens watching film after the game in particular. And Jim Carlin and Bobby Bowden used to have us meet on Sunday morning. They required that we all get dressed up and go to church somewhere, anywhere of our liking. And then we'd have lunch at the student union and get together and break up the defense from the offense and watch the film from the previous day.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll never forget on that particular play, we were playing Kentucky, I believe, and I was the offside guard pulling. My responsibility was to take the cornerback to the outside if he came up and tried to stop the play. And we had 2 great running backs. You'll know these names. Jim Braxton was our fullback, and Bob Gresham, who went on and played in the NFL. Was our scat back, we used to call him, back in the day. But it was a pitch to Gresham, and Braxton taking the defensive end, and I come from the weak side, supposed to kick out the halfback or the safety coming up to plug the hole. Well, we ran that play, and we ran it in the first quarter. So Sunday comes, and we're watching film of that game. So we run that play in the first quarter, and Coach Bowden's running the projector, and I pull from the weak side to go make that block on the cornerback coming up. I put my head down, which you're never supposed to do as an offensive lineman. And that cornerback jumped right over top of me, and he tackled Gresham for a 7-yard loss. And Coach Bowden, and you know what I'm talking about here, Pat, because they run those plays over and over and over again. If you make a mistake or mess up, then they just embarrass the heck out of you.
Oh yeah.
So the game goes on, and in the third quarter of that game, we called the same play the day before, and doggone it, if I didn't do the same thing, I pulled, I went out there, and that guy jumped right over top of me. He tackled Grissom that time. I think it was a 3-yard loss. And Coach Bowden stopped the projector. I'll never forget this. He stopped the projector, and he was so involved in what was going on and analyzing the play. He shouted at me. He said, "Plumley, I just told you no more than 10 minutes ago, I never wanted to see you do that again." And he was referring to us watching the film on Sunday morning. I said, "Wait a minute, Coach, the game was yesterday." He said, "Oh, yeah, that's right." He said, "I'm sorry, I forgot." But you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
When you get to analyzing the offensive line's play in particular and how much success or failure that has to do with the running back.
Yeah.
I'm glad you weren't playing in the Penn State game, Mickey, in '84.
Yeah. Definitely, even by today's standards, the game is probably 90% mental, and those films and getting tendencies and watching situational stuff is more important, starting now than it actually is physically playing the game. You got to know what you're doing. Knowing what you're doing, physically you'll be able to do it a lot better. But if you don't know what you're doing, you're in a struggle.
Our offensive line coach used to always have a saying, "Don't embarrass yourself mentally out there." Remember, and he was a real stickler on the mental side of the game.
Yeah.
We probably practiced, had skull sessions and pop quizzes, what your blocking assignments were. We did more of that than we did, heavy contact work after season starts. Because you don't want to get somebody injured.
Yeah, it's even more now because now you have to have a day off. I didn't have a day off when we played. Now the players get a day off, and it's
that's right. Yeah. And there's certain restrictions on when you can wear pads and when you can't.
Correct.
Even during the preseason practices. And well, with you, and I know back in the 60s at least, it was, buddy, you had a morning practice in the heat of August at 9 a.m. in the morning, and then you had a second one at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. It didn't matter if it was 100 degrees outside.
Didn't matter. It didn't matter.
Frank, you got anything you'd like to ask Pat?
I would say, why don't we make the transition?
Okay.
We've been talking about the keys to the game, put the game in perspective, and maybe the first thing to do is to look at this. I went back and everybody's talking about this is the biggest home opener for West Virginia since the Ohio State game of '98. And so listed here are all the home openers in the last 25 years, literally, since 2000. And you really can't count Boston College because we were in the Big East with them at that time. Yeah. So that's a conference game. And you can't count Kansas because that's a conference game. So there really have only been, and that's why they're in black, 2 huge or big non-conference openers against major schools, Wisconsin in 2003 and then Missouri in 2016. The rest of the schools, as you might expect, and Penn State's the same way. Yeah. They're basically group of 5 schools, not what we consider major college schools, although, Youngstown State has won multiple national championships at the championship level. And so, James Madison's very, very competitive. Marshall was really good back in the day. We know that. Played them, opened up twice. But that's one thing. Another thing here is I wanted to bring up is where we are with Penn State. And there's some interesting things here. And then maybe to start looking at that, the triple asterisk at the bottom. Greg and I were talking about that earlier, and Pat and I were talking about it earlier. There are no future games scheduled. That doesn't mean it can't happen, but with the move in major college football, which is away from regional rivalries for the most part, and with Penn State's being in the Big Ten and now an expanded Big Ten, and it looks like the Big 12 is going to expand even more if UConn comes in, and the smart money is it's not going to end anytime soon.
No.
But what's really sad here is if you go back, these teams first played in 1904 and then 7 more times between 1905 and 1931. And I remember this from my youth. I know Greg and Mickey can too. They met every year from 1940 to 1992, 52 times, except around the war years, 45 and 46. And then they didn't meet from 1993 to 2022, last year up there, this year here. And the reason is, and a lot of people either don't know this or don't remember it, is that when West Virginia left the independent world to move to the Big East, Penn State did not.
Correct.
And I remember back then people were saying, wait a minute, something's up. Well, something was up. And they were talking to the Big Ten and then joined in 1993. They joined the Big Ten in 93. West Virginia was already in the Big East. 1991 was the first season for West Virginia, and so really you've got the pivoting has changed from regionally to conferences, and then West Virginia left the Big East and then joined the Big 12. So we've got this. It looks like home and home and then done. It would be great if these teams were to play again. But before we move to the keys of the games, any thoughts about that graphic? Pat, Greg, Mickey?
Well, I'll go first. I just think that, we've talked about this several times on the show, the possible formation of conferences like the NFL has. I keep talking about that, and I really think that's the way it's going to end up because of the revenue sharing, the NIL, and all those things. It's going to end up like that. So we have these conferences just like the NFL, and then you play your conferences. You got wild card games, you got playoff games, and then ultimately the college Super Bowl, if you will. And I think one of the things that everybody wants in college football, fans, I think TV networks, they want these regional rivalries. I mean, I think they want to see Pitt, West Virginia. They want to see Penn State, West Virginia. Virginia Tech, West Virginia. I think the TV networks want to see that. I think the fans want to see that. And the way it's going right now is just, this team's going there, this team's going this conference, that conference. It don't make any difference where they're located. USC to the Big Ten, for an example. It doesn't make any difference where they're located. It's just all about the money and everything that's rolling out right now. But I think once they get that under control and the money is, the revenue sharing starts and the money starts getting distributed maybe a little bit more equally, maybe. I'm not sure if that's right or not. I think these super conferences will go away and hopefully we'll have these divisions like the NFL. I think that would benefit not only the schools like West Virginia, but fans. I think that would be a huge benefit because I want to see West Virginia play Virginia Tech, and I want to see them play Penn State, Pitt, and those teams. That's what I grew up watching. I think that's what everybody wants to see, and that's not happening right now. So the interest level, I think, is fading a little bit as the money keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. But I'm hopeful that occurs.
Yeah. Pat?
So let somebody else go.
Yeah, I think prior to, and I'm pretty certain of this, I think prior to the Big Ten expansion, this, over the past year and a half or so, that the West Virginia and Penn State were talking about another series. It was either 2029, 2030, or 2028, somewhere around there. And then, of course, the whole, conference thing went, and I think those talks got put on the shelf. So maybe they get cranked back up. I don't know. Of course, it's getting late. It'll be 2025, and these schedules are done 6, 7, 8 years out. But yeah, it's a lot of things are missing. I want to play Penn State every year. I'm going to play Pitt every year. Virginia Tech's another one. That's another really good rivalry for us. So hopefully some order comes of all this, and some of those regional big games come back, maybe some smaller divisions within the conferences, can work some things out. But TV is driving the car though, and the money is going to go up and up, and you're going to play where they tell you to play when they tell you to play. So
that's right. That's right. Mickey?
Well, just, ditto to what Pat had to say there. It's just a shame that it all comes down to money, because I think every West Virginian for sure would just love to see. Virginia Tech was a great rivalry back in the 60s when I played. I know it was, through the 70s and 80s and Pat's era also. I mean, and particularly if you lived in southern West Virginia, which, where I was born and raised in the southern coal fields, that was always a huge battle, whether we were playing down at Blacksburg or up in Morgantown. But it was a fight to the death, buddy. It was like gladiators going after each other. West Virginia Syracuse was always a big rivalry too.
Oh yeah.
And I don't know if it had anything with Schwarzenegger. Schwartzwalter. He came from West Virginia and was the coach at Syracuse, I guess, for 50 years. And I know he was always in favor of that. But
it was about 20 years, I think, Mick. Yeah.
The Pitt rivalry, Penn State, of course. Maryland was always an annual game too. But Virginia Tech, I think Pitt and Penn State are the big three. And I just like to see us play them every year.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, there was an article on social media the other day, Frank, you may know more about this than I do, about there used to be an old Ironsides trophy.
That's right. I saw that.
The Penn State Pitt West Virginia series, and then that trophy disappeared for 40 years.
Yeah. But, I saw that. Yeah, I saw that. Well, I grew up in Western New York, born in Syracuse, and a number of the viewers know this. Obviously, I was a Syracuse fan, but I would always look forward to Syracuse playing WVU, Pitt, and Penn State, and then when I came to West Virginia, Morgantown with Kathy Fear for graduate school, obviously became a West Virginia fan, and really rooted in that in the old Big East. They would play for the Lambert Cup. That name probably doesn't have a lot of meaning for a lot of people, but I think Greg may have a point. I think once this money thing gets settled, it may be easier to regionalize. And I think the college football playoff plays a big deal.
Yeah.
Because you can't, when you think about it, Saturday's game is much bigger for Penn State.
Oh, yeah.
Much bigger.
Definitely. Yep.
Because they can't afford to lose. And remember, and Neil Brown was asked this at the press conference on Tuesday. And I went back to not to confirm it, but I had forgotten. Penn State scored last year. They had the game in hand. They scored with 6 seconds left. They scored a touchdown because that score means a lot. So we'll see. Well, we've been talking among each other for the points, keys of the game. I'll put this up so you can all see it, and I'm going to put this up so it's easier for people to read. Why don't we go down the list, start with you, Pat, and see what we all see as the points, the keys to the game on Saturday, and then let's close it off with a discussion after each of us goes through. Pat? Yeah,
I'm very, very much looking forward to watching our offensive line against their defensive line. Now, we got some new guys up there, some younger guys. And Penn State has a pretty experienced defensive line, so it's going to be interesting to watch that, and keeping the quarterback off the ground and giving them some time to do things. So I think the line play is going to be really critical. And then the other thing is the third down plays. And actually, first down I'll start with, because first down, we got to have some success on first down. You got to have at least 4.5 yards on first down. And then you're able to do some things and maybe get in a groove. And staying out of third and longs, managing third downs is going to be critical. Penn State's going to bring some heat most of the time, and your third 6 and plus. So you got to try to stay out of those those situations. But I think if we can do that and manage the game, control the game, and punch them in the mouth up front, I think we're in good shape.
We also talked when we were talking, Pat, about Green at quarterback, Garrett Green, and talk a bit about. In fact, we had a conversation about Kevin's play back in '84, and Garrett sometimes gets to be a lot like Josh Allen. To basically, I don't want to say be a hero, but perhaps to extend himself beyond maybe my words, what's needed at the time. So could you talk about that?
Yeah, I appreciate what he tries to do. He's a believer in himself that he can make every throw and he can make every play in every situation. He's learned to manage that a little bit. Throwing the ball away. Getting out of some plays that he should get out of. But he's got people around him. He doesn't have to go win a game by himself. And I think he understands that now. He looks, in the spring, he looked to his playmakers, getting the right people the ball, making the right reads, where he focused. Now, when he takes off the run, he can really stress the defense, which is great. But play within yourself, play within the team. Let your teammates win the game for you. You manage them to win the game.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's gotten better at that.
Yeah, that's really important. Mickey?
Well, having played on the offensive line, my number one concern is how will our offensive line stack up against Penn State's defensive line, and how much success can we have in the run play and protecting Garrett in the passing play. I really think, it's trivia, but a lot of people always say it comes down to who wins the battle in the trenches. Mm-hmm. And having played in that position, I truly believe that. And, Penn State's got, I think, 15 all Big Ten conference players coming back. Most of those guys are on defense. So we've got our work cut out for us. We got somewhat of a revamped offensive line, but we have a very experienced offensive line as well. And I think we'll do well on the running attack and the passing attack. But a real key, I watched the Pittsburgh Steelers preseason game the other day. I think they were playing the Buffalo Bills, perhaps, but I watched Zach Frazier in particular. And that guy, as a rookie, did not miss a single assignment up through the third quarter. So if we can execute our assignments and each individual line person do what they're supposed to do and play together well as a team, then I think we can get a clear-cut advantage both in the running game and the passing game. The other point that Frank, you and I talked about earlier in the week is, Penn State's got a new offensive coordinator and they got a new defensive coordinator. And it does take some time for the players to understand and buy into whatever schemes those coordinators are choosing to run. And Pat, I'm sure you know that in your coaching days, you have to win over not only the minds, but the hearts of the players that, the scheme that you're talking about is actually going to work. So I think that's going to be real key as well. And then, the third thing I would mention is adaptability. How quickly, if we find out something's not working, or Penn State finds out something is not working, how quickly those coordinators can change, the schemes that they're running, either at halftime or before. I think those are going to be the three keys, as well, of course, as Garrett managing the game. If Garrett manages the game well, and if he's improved with his passing as much as everyone says he has, then we got a real shot. I'm looking for an upset, guys. I watched the Georgia Tech Florida State game over in Dublin on Saturday, and if we have a game plan like that, where Georgia Tech just came out, their offensive line took control of the game, and they end up winning 24-21, and Florida State was favored by 10.5. Penn State's favored by 8.5. So, yeah, I think if we can get it done in the trenches, we can win this game.
Yeah. Well, by the way, Mick, after you and I had that conversation, I said to myself, oh, what about the special teams guy? He's new too. All three coordinators at Penn State, this is their first year.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
I also learned that the guy that who is the OC, Andy Kotelnicki, who is at KU, actually Neil Brown played against him, and he said it was very difficult. It was the last game that Neil Brown was head coach at Troy, and Troy played Buffalo, University of Buffalo, in a bowl game, and Kotelnicki was the offensive coordinator for the Buffalo Bulls. And he said he was very, very difficult because he's so talented. And the other thing I think that really there's an advantage maybe for Penn State on the OC side is that he was at Kansas, so he has familiarity with the Big 12. But just one last point, Mickey, on the stack the box there, because when you and I talked, you talked a lot about that. So just say a few words about that.
Well, if I'm the defensive coordinator on Penn State and I look at West Virginia, I'm stacking the box. I'm putting 8 guys right between the hash marks, and you're going to have to prove to me that you can run the ball against my 8 best defensive players, all stacked right behind each other with the singular focus of stopping the run. And I think, that's probably the strategy they come into the game with. They're going to stack the box. They're going to try to stop C.J. Donaldson. They're going to try to stop Jakeem. And if they do that, they, of course, force us into a passing game. And then it becomes a matter of, more times than not, you're playing behind the yard markers. And it's, when you throw the ball, 3 things can happen, and 2 of them are bad. Okay. Either get a completed pass, you get an incompleted pass, or you get an interception. So running the ball, statistically, you have a better chance of success because only one bad thing can happen to you, and that's fumble. So, I think they're going to stack the box, and we're going to have to, as Pat pointed out, I think we're going to have to do some great play mixing, throwing the ball, coming out with some play action passes on first down and get that 4 or 5 yards on first down. So it opens up the field to what we'll be able to do.
Yeah. Related to that, Pat, you and I talked earlier this week. You made a point and I wrote it down. You said Penn State will give you things.
Yeah.
And that could connect to what Mickey is saying, but could you talk a bit about that? They will give you something.
They will when they bring their pressure, they're going to avoid zones, whether it be the flat or the middle of the field, the under routes, which in my mind, with what I'm looking at West Virginia's team, those under routes with the little speedy guys, man, you just got to get them the ball, get rid of the ball, get them the ball, and let them do what they do. I think Penn State, their defensive line had been a little bit undisciplined, so their rush lanes, I think Green can take advantage of those and run and pick up some first downs and really hurt them. That's the one area I know Penn State's defensive line has worked hard in their rush lanes and their discipline. So Green may be able to exploit that. I hope he doesn't make a habit of it, but I think he can. I think he can exploit that. But their secondary is coached very well at Penn State. So when they play their man to man, they're going to be stuck to you like glue. So I know some of the route combinations and the concepts there for man to man or they've worked hard on there in Morgantown. So they give you man to man, you got to make them pay. We got to find a way to make them pay. If they're going to give you the flat, we got to get those guys the ball quickly and let them turn up field and do some things with the football. Yeah.
That leads into your first line there, Greg, about the passing attack. And one of the things that Brown talked about in his presser on Tuesday was 2 guys that he's been losing sleep over, those defensive ends, Sutton and Carter, are outstanding, but you got to be creative. So your thoughts?
Yeah, I thought, following up on Mickey's point about them stacking the line, I think it's going to happen as well. But on the bright side of that is that if you get through that first wave rushing the ball, you're going to have some big gainers. against that stacked line because there's nobody else to tackle you once you get past the line. And my point was about the passing was it doesn't have to be, you're not talking about a whole game where we pass for 450 yards or whatever it may be. We have to be able to use, strategies in the passing game where you're dumping the ball off, screen passes, short passes, because that blitz is going to be so heavy. And I think that's going to be key to how we, I wouldn't say disguise our passing attack, but how we run our passing attack, where we're hitting short hitters, again, dumping off to the backfield, that sort of thing, screen passes, because I think they're going to be coming. I think they want us to pass, and they're going to get up in the line and try to force us to pass. But I don't think it's necessary that if we come out and we see a 7-man line that we automatically think we got to throw the ball, because like I said, if you can break that line of scrimmage on a run play, there's a lot of open field after that. If you got everybody up on the line, you get through on that good run play, you're going to be able to move the ball. And I think that's going to be a big key. I think our creativity in the passing game, our timely runs, our blocking on run plays, I think that's going to be key. And I also mentioned, of course, the special teams. Last year we gave up several games. We gave up long TD runs, returns on kickoffs, and I think that's been a focus of practice this year. I think our punter's very good. I think our kickoff guys probably improved. We can't afford to give up any big plays on special teams because, when you play a good, solid team like a Penn State, you can't make mistakes and still win. And so I think our special teams will be important in that area as well, because you just can't give up those those touchdowns on kickoff returns and that sort of thing. And we did it a few times last year. We had some struggles with that. So I think that'll be key for us to keep them in check. But I really think that I think our defense is going to be fine. I think our defense is going to be good. And Mickey mentioned too, watching the Georgia Tech Florida State game and talking about the upset, that he felt like West Virginia could win this game. Well, I feel like they could win it too. And the only reason these games are upsets is because, they ranked Florida State number 10 based on last year. They don't have Georgia Tech ranked. They rank Penn State, whatever they're ranked. They don't have West Virginia ranked. So that's it's an upset because the ESPN talking heads say it's an upset. But I think West Virginia is good, and I don't know that if they beat Penn State, it's necessarily going to be an upset. I think these teams are good, and a lot of these teams are, like I said, Florida State and those type of teams sometimes a little bit overrated. And I think the ESPNs and the networks want them to be good. They want Penn State to be good. They want Michigan to be good. They want Ohio State to be good because that's their money makers. But I don't know that these games are necessarily upsets this early in the season because nobody knows how good these teams really are. So hopefully West Virginia can just come out, play solid, and win the game. And I think they're going to.
Yeah. You're absolutely correct. And that's why, and I've talked with a number of people about this, the predictions, particularly before the season starts, there's nothing really to base it on. But what we do know, and this is in your second point there, is you've got returning running backs who have proven they can run against very, very tough defenses. And Nick Singleton and Keytron Allen, they're going to run. We can't let them run downhill. And I agree with you on this. And there's some data that I pulled together on kickoff coverage. And this has been an issue, and we covered this during spring ball. We just, the coaches said we just can't repeat this. WVU was number 125 nationally on kickoff defense in 23. Only 22 touchbacks. And one of the things that Coach Brown has talked about in his pressers, particularly earlier in the fall, was how Hayes' leg is getting stronger. You can't have 22 touchbacks, and you can't give up 1,100 yards on kickoff returns with 3 touchdowns, 90 yards or more. So they've talked a lot about this. I think you're right, Greg. On the other side, kick return offense and punt return offense, we've got real speedsters there, and they've been very pleased with that. The last thing I would say is Drew Aller may have had his best game of the year in the opener against WVU. He had trouble against Michigan and Ohio State. Those are great teams. We know Michigan won the national championship, but he had 75% of his passes. 3 of those receivers feasted on us. There was one long touchdown run, and it was just he had too much time in the pocket. And
Right.
so we've got to put pressure on him. We've got to have much better coverage. And that, I think, if I had to make a list of the top 3 or 4 keys of the game containing Drew Aller would be right up there, because we just can't have it repeated.
Yep. Yeah, I don't think there's any question about that. You just get, when you have a good team like this, there's a lot of things that, that make them a good team, and you can't do things to make it easier on them to be a good team, and I know that sounds kind of silly to say that, but you can't give up a 95-yard kickoff return. You can't give up a 60-yard punt return. You've got to play those parts of the game solid and don't make mistakes like that, turn the ball over, that sort of thing. You just can't do that against a good quality team. And I think that's the key. You got to take care of the simple things that you normally take care of, and then play solid on offense and defense, and you'll be fine.
Wrap up thoughts, guys.
Yeah, I was going to say we're getting close to the end of the time here. Pat, again, we absolutely love watching you play back in the day. It's been a pleasure to talk to you tonight. Any last final thoughts on Saturday's game and what you're looking forward to? Because you're going to go down and watch the game. So
I'm excited. I really am excited. And I think last week's game with Florida State going down, just like you guys said before, these rankings, these preseason rankings, I think are bogus. But this could work to our advantage, because I think we're going to win the game outright. We got to have some luck and some things go our way, but I think we're going to win the game outright, and hopefully we beat a top 10 team, and then we bounce into the top 20, top 25. So there's a lot to look forward to here, and I can't wait till Saturday. I hate to wish my life away, but I cannot.
I can't wait till then. Yeah, I think we're all looking forward to it. We're all excited about it. Nikki, you got any last thoughts?
Well, you know what? As a former player, and I know Pat identifies with this, starting to get butterflies already, just as a spectator. And there's 2 more nights and wake up for the game. Now I'm having trouble getting to sleep even last night and tonight, because the juices are starting to flow. I just wonder if any of you guys are interested in making a score prediction, because I am. I was thinking what we ought to do is start a record here, Frank, and let's each make a prediction of each game and see who comes out on top at the end. What do you think?
I like it.
Can you take yours up?
Good, sure.
And we need to keep track of them, because I know last year I was on Wolfley's show before the Penn State game, and I predicted a score, and I'm not going to lie, I was spot on. I hit it right on the head, but they never mentioned it after that. So I definitely want to. We need to make a score prediction and then keep track of it.
Okay, Frank, can you be described? Frank, can you keep track of this? All right, I'll go first. I'm going to shock you, because I've been saying for over 4 months now we're going to shock the world.
That's right.
Basically, I really think that Neil Brown is due for another upset. He upset LSU in Baton Rouge when he was at Troy, and he's got it in him to do it. And I think we're going to do it, and I think it's going to be big. I'm saying West Virginia 37, Penn State 24.
Ooh.
I think it's going to be a high-scoring game, guys.
There you go. All right, I'll make mine. So we'll let Pat go last. Okay, how about that? All right, sound good. I think West Virginia's going to win the game too, and I don't think it's going to be an upset. I think West Virginia's going to be better than they are. And again, I always say these upsets are only upsets because Kirk Herbstreit and people like that say they're going to be upsets, and they're the ones who decide that. I think we're a better football team. I think we're going to win. I think it's going to be a little bit closer than what Mickey predicted. I think we're going to go 31-27 WVU.
I hate to say this on air because it's on tape, but there was a prize last year with on the Wolfley show. It was $1,000, and after the game, I called Wolf and said, "Hey, Wolf, I got it right on the nose."
Yeah,
And
what's up
so,
with that?
but hey, I'll split it with you now. There are $50 left. So
There you go. There you go.
I've got. We're going to have Pat go left. I've got 28-24 WVU.
All right.
All right,
So
Pat.
Pat, it's up to you.
I got 27-16 West Virginia.
I like that. I like
Yeah.
that.
All right.
Yeah. All right, so we're all going WVU. That sounds good to me.
Oh, I'll tell you, that's great.
Yeah.
That's great.
I just think it's exciting, and to see WVU back in the, back to where we're expecting them to win is so refreshing, because we've had several years now. Even last year, you went into games and you worried about, hey, can we even win this game? What are we going to do to screw up? Back when Pat was up there, we knew we were going to win. We went in thinking how much we're going to win by. So that's awesome, and everybody's excited about it.
Yeah.
And I don't think we're the only ones. I think that's just a feeling. I mean, I'm in Morgantown every day. You can sense a different vibe,
That's right.
and people are feeling it. So we're hopeful that rolls over into the game. Just have to wait and see. But man, I can't wait. Can't wait.
Pats, thanks so much for joining us, taking the time.
My pleasure.
You fit the mold of those Mountaineer players that we're so proud of. We've had them on the show. You were kind enough to come on when Kevin was with us. What a career he's had after football, and so
absolutely the judge.
Boy, I'll tell you. Yeah, actually, he fined me after that. I had to pay $100 fine for some transgressions during the show. God, he's got to quit that. But
Frank, I was laughing. I told my wife that he invited us out to Arizona for the tailgate for the Mountaineer games, and I said, he don't know what he's getting into.
Yeah, right.
He'd be sorry he invited us.
Yeah. Hey, we just got some news that one of our just loyal viewers, and we wondered why he wasn't present as much. Timothy Green. Timothy, thanks so much. He's not been feeling well, and hope you get that cleared up. He's a true Mountaineer, 100%. And get yourself well, Timothy. We love you. You're a great guy.
Yeah, Frank, I want to mention too on the air, I've been down here in Tennessee, and I was going through Murfreesboro, and I remembered Mark Parsons lived there. I got in touch with him, and we met for dinner the other evening and had just a wonderful time. It went by, 2 hours flew by. Just Mark and I sat and talking. So I want to mention that and how much we appreciate him and his help.
Man.
Pat, again, thank you so much for doing this. I know everybody's busy. We'll definitely get you back on.
I enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's always a pleasure to talk to these former Mountaineers and get their thoughts on today's program and the games and that sort of thing. Yeah. We will get back in touch with you.
Please do. You guys do a great job. I enjoy it.
Well, it was great. Yeah. And next week, Mickey, you didn't play with him. We're going to have, he came in, I think he was on the freshman team your senior year, Tom Zakowski, one of those stalwarts of the early Bobby Bowden years. He was recommended to me by one of our friends. Got to have Tom on the show. I've enjoyed interacting with Tom, getting ready for the show, and so linebacker Tom Zakowski. And I also looked up. He still in history. He is in the top, I think, 4 or 5 of all Mountaineers in terms of solo tackles. So it's amazing to bring these guys back that are really lodged in the annals, historical annals. When you think of all the great linebackers we've had, for him to be in the top 5 in terms of solo tackles is unbelievable. So he'll be our guest next week.
Yeah, he was a good one.
Yep, and just like having Pat Randolph on, one of the all-time greats at WVU. It's always fascinating to see what they do after their careers at WVU, and he's no different. So it's fascinating to talk to him. Yeah. All right, Pat, thank you again for being on with us. We thoroughly enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Yep, absolutely. And Frank and I will be here with you Saturday night or Saturday afternoon after the Penn State game. We look forward to bringing you that live post-game show after the Penn State game concludes. So we appreciate that. Thanks for everybody out there watching us, and we appreciate you. Pat, again, we appreciate you. Mickey, good to see you up and at 'em. Frank, good to see you. Take care, everybody. We appreciate you watching. We'll see you next week.
Let's go, Mountaineers.
That's right.